everybody, welcome back. So what we're going to do, this project is going to be a clock face, which obviously has got an even division of 12 equal spots around it.
Now, 1 second, how much is that going to be?
I don't know. What we're going to be doing here, of course, are a series of steps that you would take. As far as the wood you want to use, I have the basswood here. It's 3/4 of an inch thick. Now I think that a thicker piece of wood might be better because you can get more depth in your carving without going through the back. The piece we have here came off of a board that I have, a nice long piece of basswood. The width of the board is determining how big our clock is going to be. So the wider the board, the bigger the clock face you can use. Now I also have some examples of some pine. Simple white pine. It's a good quality white pine. It's a little more dense than the basswood or Wamu, and it's got long grain in it, which can add to the difficulty because it's easy to split the grain. Now, if you have a denser wood like this mahogany, you won't have as many problems with the grain, and it's quite nice to carve. Again, with your tools, you got to keep them sharp all the time, and frequently you'll have to sharpen them several times. Now, for the gouges, we're going to use the Woodpecker brand, gouge set with 6 little gouges in it and chisels. We have a simple compass here, and if you go with a much bigger piece of wood, then you're going to need a bigger compass. Okay, the compass really will determine how big of a clock you can make. Now, this piece that I have here is about roughly 6.5 inches by 6.5 inches. Now, you're also going to need to have the little mechanical clock mechanism, and these are quite cheap to buy, and they come in different sizes. And one of the things you have to be concerned about is the thickness or the depth of the shaft. If it's not deep enough, then you're going to have to dig into the back of your project here quite a bit deeper. And what can happen is that you actually break through the wood, and then you have a problem here where you can see the hole all the way through it. So too much detail in the center section of your clock maybe is not a good idea unless you have a thicker piece of wood to work with. So in the beginning, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to find the center of our square. And so you would go from corner to corner and make a line, corner to corner, make a line, and where they intersect is the center of your board, right there. And so that's where we're going to set up our compass. So you want to put the point of the compass right on the center, and you want to open up the compass to a point where this is near the edge. And we'll go ahead and just simply make a circle. Okay, so the next step after drawing your circle is where the circle intersects your line. You want to go ahead and put the tip of the compass there and make a little mark there where it crosses. And then you keep doing this. You make the same measurement all the way around the whole circle. And what you should end up with is evenly spaced 6 marks on the outside edge. Now, if you touch that, it's going to change your measurement and it won't be as accurate. So I'm just making these little marks I just put on with the compass a little darker so we can see them. And then we're going to make 6 more marks. Now we're going to go to the other line that we had drawn, and we're going to put the tip of the compass right there, and we're going to go ahead and mark that out. And you keep moving your compass along, and you'll have 12 marks. There's lots of ways of creating your design. Now here's a design that is more like a Celtic knot, and that one you're using the arc of the radiuses, and you're making your adjustments to the size of the hole of the circles, than something like this, for example. This is quite simple, but then when you get inside here where all these little lines are intersecting, it gets more and more complicated, and it creates kind of too much busyness. So these are projects that are in process right now in the 6th grade. Here's one that I'm doing as an example for them. You can see that it has quite a few little elements here. It'll show you where the hour is and where the half hour is by these little triangles that I put in between the bigger polygons. I would also highly recommend that you have paper and have them work out some designs on paper ahead of time. So if this is your wood that you're going to have them use, and you put it right over the paper, go ahead and have them trace the perimeter of the wood you're going to use, go through that process. So then you mark that, and then go ahead and try out different designs. I experience working with geometry. So I'm going to show you what we're going to do with this project here. We're going to keep it quite simple. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and mark all of my marks together. So now we have 12 sides and 12 points. So I'm going to make this clock is going to be square. I'm not going to cut it round. I found that cutting them round just complicates the matter. In sixth grade, they're not that good at cutting round shapes out of square shapes with a handsaw. So I encourage them to keep it square. And then later on the back, we'll figure out where the hole comes through, and that's what's going to determine where we're going to dig out for the mechanism. Let's say that this is going to be 12 o'clock, and I'm going to go ahead and make a little mark of 12 here, 6 here, 3 here, 9 here, just so I have my bearings here and I can keep my work straight. So you have to decide what kind of design you want. Do you want a straight design like this one is, where all the lines are straight? These lines are slightly curved. If you see, there's a little bit of a curve there. This shape here, this design is all curved. There's no straight lines on it. And this one here is another type that's all curved. Well, now if they want a curve, then you simply hold your point on one of the points where it crosses, and you go ahead and draw your curve. And you do that to each one of those points. You start getting that curved design showing up. Now you can see that this starts getting very, very busy here in the middle of this clock. Doesn't mean that you have to cut all these shapes out. Okay, so you can see that is very, very complicated here in the middle. So on the project that I'm going to be demonstrating here, we're not using curves, we're using straight lines. So these leaf type shapes here are going to become more straight polygons. Alright, so we went around the whole clock face and we've marked 12 of these triangles. Okay, these triangles here. Now those triangles they look pretty much like they're equilateral triangles. I'm going to go ahead and cut out these triangles. Okay, I'm going to just make it a little bit deeper, and this is the same process that we've used on a number of other projects where we're digging out the wood. We're going to use a flat chisel to begin with. So if we're using these woodpecker knives, it's this chisel right here, and we're going to simply go along each one of those marks with a flat chisel. And you don't have to go too deep. All you need to do is get a little bit of depth there so that you can see the concave and convex shapes interplaying with each other. Alright, so once we've got one of the triangles kind of delineated there, then we're going to come back with the gouge, a simple gouge like this, and then we're going to slowly cut out that triangle. So depending on what you're doing with the gouge and which direction you're going to be carving, you can actually create part of your design just simply by how you're gouging out this hollowed area. So I'm just making all these gouge marks go towards the point of that triangle. Okay, like that. Okay, and you can come back the opposite direction if you like. And all of these gouge marks are going to be kind of following that triangle mark. Okay, it doesn't need to be too deep. Now you can come back with the chisel again if you want to smooth this and make it smooth. Okay, in this case, I'm eliminating the gouge marks. You're not going to be able to see those in the final project, and that's fine too. Okay, and so I'm going to go ahead and put these woodpeckers away for a little bit. And I'm going to open up this other set of gouges and chisels that I have, and let's see what we can do with these guys. Okay, that's a little too fine. This is not a bad size right here. So we'll slowly kind of smoothing it out best as possible. We'll come back with the sandpaper later and really make it smooth. And you just keep doing that process around the whole perimeter. I'm just going to simply use the straight chisel. So here is a little bit bigger one, get more work done. When I'm teaching this to adults, I let them get a little more creative, depending on their skills. I've seen some amazing clocks that the adult students have done. This one is okay. I'm going to use this gouge here. Okay, and I'm going to slowly do that same process I did before. And now we can come back with the chisel, clean that edge up a bit. Okay, so the depth that you want to dig in here, the deeper it is, the harder it's going to be to sand it. And again, it's going to take more time the deeper you go. So you just continue that process all the way around the whole project. And then eventually you're going to get to the point where you're going to have to drill the center for the hole of the clock. We'll use that same process again, going from the point of that triangle out to the edge. Another good reason that a clock is a good project for 6th grade is that it's very useful, very practical, and it can be quite beautiful too. So I've got 3 of them done in just that amount of time. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna jump over to one that I've already prepared here. That's basically the same design. Okay, so we'll put this one over here. This one's slightly bigger, but it won't matter. And you can see where I've got these areas already dug out here. Now you might want to come back with a gouge and clean up the bottom of it. But right now I'm just going to go ahead and show you how to go around the circle. And I'm just going to make one little cut in here like this. And then I'm going to come back with the V tool, the V cutting tool. And I'm very carefully going to use this V cutting tool right in the mark that I just cut in. I'm just making this a little deeper. And of course you want to be careful not to push too hard. It's easy to damage it at this point. You know, if you don't want to use this type of tool, you can definitely use a knife for the same purpose, where you're actually using the tip of the knife to cut that in. Okay, so again, you can use this V tool to go in there and kind of mark out that line a little deeper, or you can use the knife. Now the knife, again, you're going to have to hold your knife in such a way you're not going to cut yourself if it slips. So you want to keep moving the project around so that you're always carving away from yourself. And I personally don't really like using this tool. It's really easy to lose control, and because of the way the grain of the wood changes, depending on what side of the project you're working on, it can complicate the issue. So I've got it pretty much cut all the way around so you can see the circle a little bit better. We can use some sandpaper to clean that up and show to be a little deeper. So when you're using sandpaper on very small little details like this, you need a very small piece of sandpaper. And then I'm going to get it to go into that curve and try to clean it up before we go to the next step. The sanding, of course, can take forever, depending on how smooth you want it to get. In this case, because we're doing a video, we only got a limited amount of time on this. We're going to keep it, we're not going to get that crazy with sanding. We're just going to keep moving so you can see what processes need to happen. Now what I will do before I move on to the next step is I'm going to erase all this business here in the middle that I did with the pencil. So you can see that will quickly disappear here, but our center little mark here where the center of this circle is will stay because it's into the wood. It's not a pencil mark, it's actually poked into the wood. And we're going to need that to determine where the center of the hands are going to be located. Okay, so there we go. Now this wood, by the way, is not basswood. This particular piece of wood is poplar. It's a little harder. The grain is a little bit longer. Okay. All right, so you see there's actually a lot of roughness out here, which in a way will give you a contrast between smooth and rough texture. So I'm not going to worry about that rough texture on the inside. I think I'm going to go ahead and leave it like that. This is the center. I can just barely see the mark. And now I'm going to get my little mechanism out for this project. So we're going to need a hole that's the size of this threaded area, this gold brass threaded area. It needs to be the size of the hole that we're going to put through here. And I'm going to get my drill thing here going. Use the biggest one. It's a little small for it, but we can make it bigger. You've seen me use this tool before. Good handy tool to have in the wood shop. And you simply just put it right where that mark is. And now you just slowly are turning this to make your hole go straight through. Now if you want to use a different type of a drill, that's fine. You could use a brace and bit. I find that this tool is quite effective. Now, I also showed you before that there's a little trick you can use to help keep your board kind of stable, and that's to simply have a little piece of wood here that you put alongside of it with a nail in it to help keep it from moving around. Okay, so that's not going anywhere. And we'll continue with our process here. Take it out and see if I've gotten all the way through yet. I don't think. Yep, there it is. You see, it just barely went through. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, the drill bit is a little bit smaller than this hole that we're going to need. Needs to be. So I'm going to go ahead and use my knife to open it up just a little bit wider, so we can double check. The threaded brass part of the mechanism will fit down in here, which you'll see what we're going to do with that here in a second. Okay, a little bit deeper, needs to be a little bit wider. Okay, and there it is. Okay, so now we are going to hold that in there, and we're going to go ahead and mark the outside of this mechanism, because that's what we need to cut out. So I'm going to go ahead and use the same process. And I'm going to go a little bit further than the pencil line. Okay, because what happens is the deeper you go, the thinner it all becomes, and it's easier just to make it a little bit bigger to start with, and then you can adjust it. I'm going to use the bigger one, and I'm going to make it a little bit further than the pencil mark. You want to get the perimeter done before you start hollowing it out. You can use your knife to kind of go over that same mark again. And then you want to use the gouge to start taking out the material and go towards the outside edge, just like that. You can use the mallet. A lot of kids like to use the mallet. They don't have the strength in their hands and their arms that I do. And there's a certain sense of satisfaction you get from using the mallet. As you can see, we've got one side pretty much cleared out. And you just keep working your way around the perimeter, doing that same process. Okay, I'm going to use this big guy here and see what happens. So you just keep using that same process all the way around this whole little area where the mechanism is going to be, and then eventually you're going to get it down to a point where the mechanism is going to fit through here nicely. Okay, and you see how it's beginning to stick out the other side, but it still needs to go in deeper, because the little brass part of this needs to be protruding from the other side, and it's not quite there yet. If you look really closely, it's almost there. So that means that this needs to go in just a little bit deeper. So I'm going to use the chisel to go ahead and make it nice and smooth down here so that mechanism will fit in. Just needs to go just a tiny bit more. Okay, so you see it poke through. I'm going to show you how we can fix that later. Poke through again a little bit, no problem. Alright, let's see if we can make this little brass thing come out the other side. Just barely sticking through. Could be a little bit deeper. So I can see right now that this area right here is holding us up. So I'm going to carefully take my knife and trim that little piece that's holding us up off. A lot of times the corners are going to be a problem too, so make sure you get the corners well. Use your knife to do this. Probably the best tool. Okay, let's see. Okay, now I'm going to insert that again, press it in nicely, and there I can see the gold threads just barely sticking through. So that's going to be deep enough. Now, again, if I went much deeper than that, then all these holes would split open and you'd be able to see the mechanism. But I've got a little way that a little trick that I'm going to show you that we can do to correct this damage. Just adds a little bit more of a complexity to it, but it's nothing that can't be resolved. What I have here is I have two thin pieces of wood that I prepared ahead of time. This is mahogany, this is walnut. Okay, so the mahogany of course is going to give it a reddish color, the walnut's going to be darker brown. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually measure each one of these. I'm going to hold that edge right up to the corner. I'm going to make a mark like this. It should go up basically all the way across. Now I'm going to make it a little bit bigger than what the hole is that I have here, because I can always make it smaller. I can trim it down, sand it down, but you can't make it any bigger. I get my saw out. I'm going to go ahead and cut that triangle. Now we're going to take this little corner off of there. Again, if we cut too much, it'll be too small. So sometimes you need to use a little piece of wood here to block it in, hold it up so that it won't move around on you. Now this piece will simply go over that spot and we'll fill it in. So now I'm going to come back and I'm going to adjust the size of it so it'll fit in that little triangle. If it doesn't fit, flip it over, try it the other way. Okay, and I'm going to have to keep taking the size down just a little bit. Now, obviously, when you have to do this, it adds a layer of complexity to this whole project. But it is a way of solving the problem. And it actually comes out looking really cool if this is done well. But if you do that to each one of these, then it'll cover up those holes where it went through. And it actually adds another dimension of interesting coolness to the clock. Okay, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'm going to go ahead and install the mechanism here. Show you how that works. Double check it. Make sure it's going to fit through there no matter which way I have it oriented. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm going to hold that down nice and snug. And then you take out the rest of your mechanism here, which has the hands. So I'm going to go ahead and put that nut on, start tightening it up a little bit. And then of course you're going to need some type of a wrench, which I don't have in front of me, but I got that on pretty snug, so you see it's held in there by the nut. So the next step would be to go ahead and put the hour hand on. I'm gonna go ahead and snug that in there like that. There's the hour hand. And then we're gonna put the minute hand on. Again, that is a careful process that you don't wanna force it too hard or you will end up bending the hand. Okay, and then finally the second hand will go on at the end. If you want to go ahead and set the time, well, you need to figure out where the 12 o'clock is. So let's say that this is going to be 12 o'clock right here. And this hand will make it about, how about 4 o'clock? A little past 4 o'clock. And then the minute hand, let's have it come around here to about, I don't know, about 4:20 is a good number to go shoot for. Okay, so once you have these hands carefully put in, so you don't bend them and they're not going to cross over each other, then you want to get your battery out and insert it in the back here. Okay, and there we go. That's pretty much the process of making this clock. Now we kind of rushed through it here, and I had several different examples here to show you. But really, each of the techniques that I showed you is what you're going to have to do to make your clock. I highly recommend that you get 3 or 4 of these mechanisms. Try to get the different depths of the shaft, and just experiment with yourself and see which works best for you. It may be one of these mechanisms not going to work. If you want to go ahead and put numbers in, you can do that with a wood burner. You could carve the numbers in, which I would not recommend you do. Or just let it be a mystery. As long as this is pointed up, you pretty much know that that is 3 o'clock right over here. There's 12, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now we have the mechanism in, but you notice what I did not do with this one is I did not oil it ahead of time. And of course there's sanding that needs to happen here, where you can see the little pencil line. So that's going to take quite a bit of sanding. But once your sanding is done, then you want to, before you put your mechanism in, then you want to go ahead and put your oil finish on it. And that will really make it immensely more finished looking. It'll be beautiful, it brings out the grain in the wood, and it's a done deal. So that's it for this particular project. But thank you for tuning in and watching this little tutorial. And remember, if you do have questions along the line, we're answering questions, and I'd like to hear your feedback, and you'll hear my feedback if you have a good question. Okay, well, thank you very much for watching. See you next time.